What's happening, my fellow culinary enthusiasts? I am Josh Champion with Emerald Coast Chefs, and today we are talking about how to make the perfect crab cake. Man, there is nothing quite like a great crab cake. There is also nothing quite like a really bad crab cake. And unfortunately, I see a lot more of the latter than the former. So if that is your experience, your story does not have to end here, my friend. Stick around and I'm gonna show you how to turn this beautiful jumbo lump crab meat into this. All right, so to get our crab cake started, I've got 2 eggs here in our mixing bowl, and we just want to go ahead and make sure these are beat really well. I think a lot of times when people are using eggs and different ingredients, whether it's baked goods or casseroles, one of the biggest reasons why you don't get that light, fluffy texture that you're after is from not beating the eggs well enough. So I'm gonna beat these to not only make sure that the yolk and the whites are well incorporated, but you can actually see how light and airy these are. All right, then we've got mayo. I'd say we're right around a cup. Quality matters when it comes to mayo there, so not a ingredient that we want to use the cheap store label on. And then I've got some Creole mustard here. If you don't have any Creole mustard around, feel free to use just a coarse ground whole grain mustard, Dijon. Probably most anything but yellow mustard would be fine. And then we are going to go in with some Worcestershire, probably about 1.5 tablespoons. Quality matters on that as well. Your favorite hot sauce, whatever that is, probably right around 1 tablespoon. I've got some granulated garlic. And then this is just a basic Italian seasoning, just to kind of give it some depth and some background. You can use fresh herbs, but we're going to bake these, so a lot of that kind of freshness of the herbs is going to cook out. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time chopping herbs. And the juice of a lemon. Make sure you use fresh squeezed here. This is what's going to give your crab cakes that really fresh, vibrant, the sharpness, all that acidity that really makes them taste fresh. Acid, like salt, is a flavor enhancer. And what that means is simply it has a natural ability to make flavors taste more like themselves without altering those flavors. And then I'm going to put in probably half, maybe a little less than half, about 1/3 of a medium-sized red onion. And then we're going to add about half a bell pepper. As far as what color you use, red, orange, yellow, I recommend that instead of trying to predetermine what color you're going to use, that you just buy based on freshness, and whichever one looks the best at the store that day is probably the one that you should go with. All right, so lastly, we need to add our seasonings. Now, you could just go straight kosher salt. You could do Old Bay. I'm actually going to use some Tony Sassery's Creole seasoning. That's probably somewhere around 1 teaspoon or so, maybe a little less, 3/4 teaspoon. All right, now we want to mix this as well as we can. So we want all the seasonings, all of the vegetables, everything in here to be well mixed. This is what we would call the wet mix. Because once we add the crab, we are no longer going to be able to continually mix this. And the reason is, you see these beautiful jumbo chunks of crab meat. We don't want to break those up. And so the more we mix this, the more that crab meat is going to break up. Jumbo lump, you're going to find out when you go to the seafood market, is the most expensive form of crab meat. And so if you're going to spend the extra money to have the extra quality, make sure that you protect that by mixing things in the right way, okay? So I've got our wet mix totally incorporated here. And I'm just going to go ahead and add my crab. So from this point on, this is kind of the point of no return. We are very limited on how much more mixing we can do. Now, I've got some seasoned panko breadcrumbs here, and seasoned panko just has a little bit of salt added, as well as some Romano and some herbs. And what I'm looking for, I don't know if you ever had a crab cake from a restaurant and found that it was pretty much all bread. We don't want that to happen here. We just want to use these as the binder. So this is what's essentially going to hold everything all together for us. I'm going to go ahead and mix this up. And we're just going to turn this as lightly as we possibly can. We just want to make sure that all of our breadcrumbs are coated and that all of our crab is coated. All right, just like so. And we're ready to tray this up. All right, so after we've got our mixture put together, I've got some oven tins. Now, traditionally, the way that we see crab cakes done is we would put these in a saute pan, brown them on one side, flip them, pop the whole saute pan in the oven, finish it. That's probably the way 95% of the restaurants you've ever eaten at did their crab cakes. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do this entirely in a muffin tin. And I think there's several advantages to this. One, it's really easy to do the texture. You don't have to worry about your crab cakes falling apart before they get done. It's easy to get the consistency of the mix right. If it's a little too wet, it'll be fine. The other thing is it's really nice to just be able to see the portions that you have as they're cooked. They're already portioned out. I'll show you how we're going to get these out of the tin so that we can plate these, whether that be individually or on a platter or what have you. Easily. So I've got some spray here on our muffin tins. This is actually the baking spray with flour. I have found that does help quite a bit with making sure that these come out nice and easy. Having said that, you can also make this recipe totally gluten-free just by using the gluten-free panko. I've done that many times. I do that actually often for private chef clients who are gluten-free, and typically, it's not a giant difference. You can definitely tell a difference in the texture. Obviously, without the gluten, that kind of sponginess that holds everything together isn't there. But they do okay without crumbling too bad. So I'm going to get these put in the muffin tins, nice and leveled. I've also got a little mini tin over here, and I'll show you just to do some examples of those. But you can make little crab cake bites. So these are excellent for hors d'oeuvres or cocktail parties, Christmas parties, any kind of event where maybe finger foods might be appropriate. I promise these crab cakes definitely are a hit. Even if you're not doing them in your own home, they definitely hold for a couple of hours and are still really nice even at room temperature. So I've got the crab cakes trayed up in our muffin tins, and I've currently got my Little Wolf convection oven preheated to 385 Fahrenheit. Now, typically I find that 375 to 400, depending on your oven, every oven's a little bit different, is going to be the sweet spot. If you have a non-convection oven, I recommend just going at 400 degrees. You may need to cut that back down to 375 or so for the last about 10 minutes of cooking to keep those from getting too dark on the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and pop these in. And depending on your oven and the speed which it cooks, 20 to 25, sometimes even 30 minutes. So our crab cakes are about ready to come out, and man, they look great. They smell even better. I think the little minis are going to be about 2 to 3 minutes ahead of our full size ones. And then I'll let Yeah, I'll let this tin have just 2 to 3 more minutes. Looks like our full-size crab cakes are done. And one of the things I look for here is that they just start to pull away from the sides of the pan and puff up a little bit, and then that they are the color and brownness level that I'm looking for. So we're going to let these rest. And while these are resting, I will go ahead and get our sauce put together. Okay, so while our crab cakes are cooling down, those will need to sit for a solid probably 7 minutes or so before we try to get those out of the muffin tin so that they can continue to contract as they cool back down. So we're going to go ahead and get our sauce put together. What we're going to make is essentially a lemon Old Bay Aioli. Now you could use your favorite remoulade recipe here, certainly. You could put together kind of a white wine butter sauce like a beurre blanc, totally up to you. This is essentially a form of remoulade, what we're going to make today. So I've got right around 2 cups of good quality mayo here, and then roughly right at 1 cup of Creole mustard. So about 2 parts mayonnaise to 1 part mustard. And again, if you don't have a Creole mustard on hand, just use a stone ground, even a spicy brown, Dijon, whatever you have. It will be just fine. A finely chopped shallot. Again, if you don't have a shallot on hand, feel free to you could use a red onion. You could use something like a yellow sweet onion. Either of those would work. You just want to make sure that you chop that fine enough that you don't have big chunks of onion, raw onion there as you're spooning through your sauce. And then, so I've got some chopped capers and then some chopped fresh chives. We'll go ahead with the juice of a lemon. Depending on the amount of juice that's in your lemon, you may want to go more than one. We want that brightness, all that sharp acid from that lemon to really come through. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and squeeze one more in here. And an aioli is basically a flavored mayonnaise. So if you've never played around with aiolis very much, they're kind of a really good blank canvas to create some things, come up with some really great sauces for hamburgers and sandwiches, for using with fries or fried vegetables, all sorts of things that we can do with that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and whisk this together a little bit, and then add in some of your favorite hot sauce, whatever that may be, roughly a tablespoon, a heavy tablespoon. Quality Worcestershire sauce, and we'll go about 2 tablespoons on that. And then for seasoning, I'm going to use just straight Old Bay. It probably takes more seasoning than you think it does. Both the mayonnaise in this as well as the lemon juice can stand up to a lot of seasoning. So you may notice if you ever get something too salty, lemon juice is certainly something that can counteract that quite a bit, in addition to things like mayo, heavy cream. Because I have made this a lot personally, I can kind of tell based on color that it's not quite where we want it to be with the seasoning. Yeah, that'll get us there. Perfect. All right, and this sauce is the same in the sense of make this up, the day before or even several days in advance. It's only going to get better as it sits in the fridge. If it's Wednesday and you're starting to kind of prep and do some things for your house party on Saturday, not too early to make that sauce. Let's go grab our crab cakes and get those guys out of the tin. Okay, so my crab cakes have cooled and it's time to get them out of the muffin tins. So typically I'll just take a butter knife and I just go around them and just make sure they're kind of separated from the tin in every area. And again, it's really important to give these that 5+ minutes. You're going to need at least 5 minutes, but 7 to 10 is better to let these cool down a little bit and release. So once I've gone around the pan with my knife and it looks like they're all going to come out okay, I typically will just take a sheet pan and we just want to invert these, and then I kind of give them a gentle tap. And then we just let that pan release these. Now, if you need to, you can stage these. So if you're doing a dinner party, you know, you have 12 guests, you can do these a little in advance, have these on this sheet tray here, pop these back in the oven, give them a final blast right before you serve. All right, so we're all set to plate up, and show you one example of how I do the larger crab cakes and then kind of how we plate the minis as well. So I'm just going to put a little sauce down here on a plate and give that a smear. And then I'll put the rest of that ramekin to go with my minis. I've just got some fresh baby arugula. And this is nice mustardy, peppery flavor. And we'll just go right there on our crab cakes. As far as our minis, we'll just go around the plate with a little arugula. You can use a spoon. I've got a little offset spatula here, and it's pretty good about pulling these right up out of the little tins. And it looks like we were about one short on space on the plate for our mini. So what a travesty. Well, folks, that's it today for crab cakes. As always, thank you so much for stopping by the channel. If you've got something out of this video, please give it a thumbs up, a like, click the bell, get those notifications when we come out with our weekly videos. If you make this, please let me know in the comments section how it turned out. If you're a hater, let me know how life from your mom's basement's going, whatever. We always enjoy reading the comments. Thanks so much. Until next time, we'll see you soon.